She thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. Diana had always been in control. Brilliant, calculated, and confident, she dictated the rules of her marriage. At least, that's what she believed. That night, standing by the window of their London penthouse, she spoke without hesitation, her voice cool and detached. "I just need one night with another man. It's not cheating if I'm honest about it." Xander sat still, his expression unreadable. She expected resistance, maybe even anger, but not silence. She mistook his quiet for acceptance. She was certain he would stay, that he would endure, as he always had. But that night, her world began to unravel. While Diana chased validation, Xander set a plan in motion. She thought she could play the game without consequences. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. "Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started." I had once believed my marriage to Diana was unshakable. We had met at university, both driven, both eager to carve out our place in the ruthless world of finance. She was brilliant, relentless, and always in control, qualities that made her formidable in business and, for a time, irresistible to me. Our careers flourished, hers in corporate finance, mine in investment banking. Together we built a life of wealth, status, and what I mistook for love. But I had never been more mistaken. One evening, within the sleek, glass-walled embrace of our London penthouse, Diana stood by the window, a glass of wine balanced between her fingers, her gaze locked onto the sprawling skyline. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was cool and unwavering. "Don't be absurd. There won't be a divorce." I blinked, caught off guard. "What?" She turned then, as composed as ever, as if we were discussing weekend plans rather than the destruction of our marriage. "I need one night, just one night to remind myself that I'm still wanted. That's all." A slow wave of nausea rolled through me. "Diana, do you even hear yourself?" She exhaled sharply, already irritated. "Xander, this isn't about you. It's something I need." A hollow laugh escaped me. "Not about me? You're standing here telling me outright that you're going to sleep with someone else, and you expect me to just be fine with it?" She rolled her eyes, setting her glass down with deliberate ease. "It's not cheating if I'm honest about it," she stated matter-of-factly, as if presenting a calculated business strategy. "I love you, Xander, but I refuse to feel trapped." I stared at her, searching for any trace of the woman I had married, but she didn't flinch. No hesitation, no remorse. Then, without a flicker of secrecy, she strode into our bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and began packing. She wasn't sneaking around, she wasn't lying, because she truly believed she didn't have to. She thought I would accept this, that I had no choice. She was wrong. The door clicked shut behind her, and in that instant, something in me shifted. She assumed I would sit there, powerless, waiting for her to return. She underestimated me. Without hesitation, I picked up my phone. The call was answered almost immediately. "Early," I said. "I need a favor." Early, and I had been inseparable since university. A brilliant forensic accountant, and more importantly, someone who knew exactly how to dismantle people financially. "What's going on?" he asked, immediately picking up on my tension. "Diana's about to cheat on me," I said, my voice steady, calculating, "and I need to destroy her." A low whistle came through the receiver. "Damn, that's brutal. What's the plan?" I exhaled slowly. "Start with her finances. She's careful, but nobody's perfect. If there's something there, I want to know." "Got it. Anything else?" A slow, knowing smile crept across my face. "Let's make sure she never forgets this night." By the time Diana returned the next morning, still wearing the same dress from the night before, I was already several steps ahead. She walked in, tossed her bag onto the couch with an air of casual satisfaction. "See?" she said, stretching as though nothing had changed. No big deal. I watched her carefully, my expression unreadable. Did you have fun? She tilted her head, regarding me with mild amusement. Xander, don't be childish. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I simply smiled and turned away. That should have been her warning, but she was too busy congratulating herself to realize that while she had been proving something to herself, I had been proving something far more significant, just how easily I could dismantle her entire world. The first blow landed swiftly. Early's investigation uncovered something invaluable: covert transactions, financial misconduct. Diana had been siphoning company funds into private accounts, careful enough to avoid immediate detection, but not careful enough to be untouchable. That illusion shattered when an anonymous report landed on her firm's compliance desk. That evening, I observed from across the room as she paced, her phone pressed tightly against her ear. What do you mean, flagged transactions? That's ridiculous. She was unraveling, and I was only getting started. The next hit struck her finances directly: a declined credit card at an upscale boutique. At first, she dismissed it as a bank error, but as the days passed, the reality settled in. One night, she appeared in the doorway of our bedroom, her usual poise visibly shaken. Xander, something's wrong. I glanced up from my laptop. Oh? She hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. My accounts, they're frozen, and there's... Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. An internal investigation. Someone reported me. I arched an eyebrow. That sounds serious. Her eyes narrowed. You don't seem surprised. I shrugged, feigning indifference. Maybe that's because I know exactly the kind of person you are. She inhaled sharply. You... I cut her off smoothly. You did this to yourself. Her lips parted, but no words came. Good. Let the fear settle in. And then, the final act. The divorce papers. The final puzzle piece snapped into place the moment I pushed the divorce papers across the table. Diana's fingers trembled as she flipped through them, her eyes skimming the cold, official language that spelled out the end of us. You're actually doing this? Without hesitation. Her expression twisted in disbelief. You can't just walk away over one mistake. I exhaled sharply, a bitter chuckle escaping. No, Diana. A mistake is an accident. What you did was a choice, and now I'm making mine. The unshakable confidence she had always wielded like a weapon faltered, giving way to something she rarely allowed herself to feel: fear. But you love me. I shook my head. I loved the version of you that I thought was real. Now? Now, I just want to watch you fall. And with that, I walked away, leaving her to drown in the ruins of her own making. For years, Diana had meticulously built her image, a formidable name in finance, a woman of status, a wife who had it all. Control was her currency, and she had spent a lifetime ensuring nothing slipped through her fingers. Yet in just a handful of days, I had shattered it all. The pristine world she had crafted began to crumble, brick by brick. At her firm, whispers turned into scrutiny. The board members, once captivated by her brilliance, now eyed her with suspicion. Investigators sifted through her records, unearthing the inconsistencies she had so carefully concealed. One by one, the doors that had always swung open for her slammed shut. Her accounts were frozen, her credibility eroded like sand slipping through a sieve. And looming over it all was the divorce, the final nail in the coffin of her perfect life. I watched her unravel. One morning, she sat at the kitchen counter, staring blankly at the untouched coffee in front of her. Her fingers traced slow, restless circles against the marble. The woman who once commanded every room she entered was fraying at the edges. I savored every moment. Then, inevitably, she cracked. Xander. Her voice was softer than I had ever heard it. Can we talk? Leaning against the doorway, I folded my arms. About what? She inhaled shakily, as if forcing herself to face the truth. I messed up. I arched an eyebrow. No kidding. She swallowed hard, struggling to find the words. I let myself get caught up in something I shouldn't have. It wasn't about you. It was about me. I needed to feel wanted. I finished the thought for her. You craved the thrill of the forbidden. She winced, as if hearing it aloud made it worse. Yes, but it didn't mean anything. I still love you. This time I laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. Love? You love me so much that you stood in front of me and told me you were going to sleep with another man? That's the love you're talking about. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. I tilted my head slightly. And that's exactly it, Diana. You never thought about me at all. She reached out, desperate, but I stepped back before her fingers could graze my arm. We can fix this. I met her gaze and held it before shaking my head. No, Diana. You're the one who has to live with the consequences. That was the moment it hit her. The moment she realized there was no coming back. The following week shattered what was left of her. First, the firm severed ties. The financial discrepancies she had brushed aside were undeniable, and her attempts to explain them away were drowned out by scandal. She fought, clawed for leverage, but the corporate world is merciless. One stain on a reputation, and it's over. Then came the cruelest twist of all. The man she had thrown everything away for? He disappeared the moment things got messy. He was never interested in anything more than a fleeting indulgence. She had gambled her entire life for a hollow distraction. And she had lost. But the final, crushing blow came when she realized she had nothing left. Diana had always believed she was untouchable, that she could manipulate any situation to her advantage. But this time, I had made sure there was no way out. The divorce papers were just the beginning of a meticulously executed plan. I had already moved everything into my name, legally, irreversibly. The assets she once flaunted, gone. The luxury apartment, sold. The car she adored, repossessed. Her credit, reduced to nothing. She had always assumed she held the power, but in the end, it had all been borrowed from me. And now, she had nothing. The day she returned to find the locks changed, her suitcases neatly stacked outside, and an eviction notice bearing my signature, I watched from a distance. She crumpled to the pavement, staring at the cold reality before her. The woman who once had it all was now destitute, and I had never felt lighter. Then came the call. A few nights later, my phone buzzed. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. I answered. Yeah? Silence stretched for a moment before her voice, small, fragile, came through the line. Xander. I said nothing. I have nothing. Leaning back in my chair, I exhaled. I know. A pause, then the word I had been waiting for. Please. A smirk tugged at my lips. Please what? Help me. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. For a fleeting second, I almost pitied her. Almost. You did this to yourself, Diana. I just made sure you felt the consequences. She sniffled, the weight of her downfall pressing down on her. I was your wife. Closing my eyes, I shook my head. You were supposed to be my wife, but you threw that away for a fleeting moment of desire. Xander, she pleaded, desperation clinging to every syllable. But I was done. You made your bed, Diana. Now lie in it. And without another word, I hung up. I stared at the phone, half expecting it to light up once more, willing her to make one last desperate attempt. But the silence stretched on, confirming what I had already accepted. Diana finally understood that I was truly gone. Yet this wasn't the end. Not yet. She had never been one to concede defeat so easily, and I knew she wouldn't start now. The battle was far from finished. What lay ahead would be even more ruthless, and I was ready for every second of it. This wasn't just about retribution. It was about ensuring she never forgot what she had lost. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. The reckoning had only just begun. After ending the call, I remained still, letting the gravity of my actions sink in. But there was no regret, no second thoughts, only an unwavering sense of satisfaction. For years, she had spun lies, reshaping reality to fit her needs, believing she held control over me. Now, her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and I was the one pulling the strings. The next morning, my phone vibrated with a message from Early. Got something big. You'll want to see this. We met at a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. He slid a folder across the table, lowering his voice as he spoke. She's been moving money into offshore accounts, not just company funds, her personal fortune too. She's been hiding assets. I flipped through the pages, a slow grin forming. This is exactly what I needed. Early studied my reaction. You're not planning to let her walk away from this, are you? I shook my head, firm. Not a chance. That evening I dialed Diana's number. She answered immediately, her voice laced with apprehension. Xander, please. I found the offshore accounts, I interrupted, my tone as sharp as a blade. A pause, then a shaky breath. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't waste my time. I have the proof, the money, the deception, the betrayal. You really thought you could hide it from me? She stammered, struggling for words, but I wasn't about to let her regain control of the conversation. Here's how this works, I continued coldly. You'll sign over every last cent you've hidden. If you refuse, I take this straight to the authorities, and believe me, Diana, they won't be as forgiving as I am. Xander, you can't do this, she whispered, desperation thick in her voice. I already have, I said, unyielding. You have 24 hours. I ended the call before she could protest. The next day, Diana arrived at my apartment. Her face was pale, her hands unsteady as she held out a stack of documents. Here, she murmured, barely audible. It's all there. I took the papers, scanning them thoroughly. Every detail was in place. You've destroyed me, she choked out, tears slipping down her cheeks. I met her gaze without a hint of sympathy. No, Diana, you did that to yourself. I just made sure you faced the consequences. She crumpled, sobbing. I'm sorry, Xander. I truly am. I crouched, locking eyes with her. Sorry doesn't erase what you've done. You wanted it all, your career, your lover, and me waiting in the wings, but you miscalculated. Now, you have nothing. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Leave. Her tear-filled eyes searched mine for mercy. Please, Xander, don't do this. You made your choice, I said, turning away. Now live with it. She left that day, broken, her once confident stride reduced to a hollow shuffle. I watched from the window, unaffected. But this wasn't over. A week later, my phone rang. Diana's lawyer. Mr. Carter, he began, his voice clipped with professionalism. My client is willing to settle the divorce on your terms. I smirked. Good. Let her know I'll be in touch. The agreement had already been drafted. Diana would walk away with nothing, no assets, no financial support, no lifeline. She had gambled on arrogance, and now she was paying the price. When the final papers were signed, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. She was no longer a part of my world. I was free. Shortly afterward, I left London behind, carving out a new life in Zurich. My career flourished, and for the first time in years, I felt unshackled. The weight of her betrayal was gone, replaced by the satisfaction of knowing I had reclaimed my own fate. But I never forgot her. A year later, a letter arrived, the handwriting unmistakable. Xander, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you can at least understand. I was lost. I made a terrible mistake. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. Diana. I read it twice. Then, without hesitation, I dropped it into the fire. Forgiveness was never an option. Not then, not now. Time passed, and I believed I had left Diana in the past. But one evening, as I stared out over the Zurich skyline, my phone rang. It was early. "You're not going to believe this," he said, disbelief thick in his voice. I leaned forward. "Tell me." My interest piqued. "They caught Diana," he said, his voice edged with satisfaction. "Tried to sneak out of the country with whatever cash she had left. Airport security nabbed her before she even reached the gate." I leaned back, a slow smirk tugging at my lips. "So, her luck finally ran dry?" Early chuckled, a deep, knowing sound. "You're cold. You know that?" "Maybe," I admitted with a nonchalant shrug. "But she brought this on herself." And that was that. Diana had always carried herself like she was untouchable, convinced she could talk or scheme her way out of anything. But in the end, she learned the most unforgiving lesson of all. Pride will destroy you faster than betrayal ever could. As for me, no remorse, no hesitation. This was never about anger. It was about clarity, about making sure she understood exactly what she had thrown away. And I had done just that. Betrayal only cuts deep if you let it. The moment you release it, the weight shifts entirely onto the one who caused it. And Diana? She had nowhere left to turn, no one left to blame but herself. This story has come to an end. Power, control, and arrogance can make a person feel invincible, until reality proves otherwise. Diana believed she could manipulate love, loyalty, and trust to serve her desires, but actions have consequences. Betrayal isn't just about breaking vows, it's about underestimating the person you betray. Respect and honesty are the foundation of any relationship. The moment you treat someone as disposable, you risk becoming disposable yourself. Diana's downfall wasn't just about infidelity, it was about entitlement. In the end, arrogance destroyed her faster than betrayal. Never take the people who love you for granted, because once they decide to walk away, there's no turning back. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. What if your entire life was just a carefully crafted lie? For 12 years, he built what seemed like the perfect world. A cozy home, 2 children, a wife he worshipped. But then, he found an old phone. One tap, and everything he believed in shattered. Sweet words, promises, laughter he thought belonged only to him, now stained with the names of 3 different men. A betrayal that had been unfolding for years. But instead of rage, he had a plan. And when the big day arrived, as they sat around the dinner table, there was a quiet click of a box opening. Inside, 3 envelopes. Secrets that would change everything. Ready to find out what happened next? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. I once believed that love was meant to be unwavering, a solid foundation that could withstand even the most turbulent storms. Perhaps that's why I held on to Lisa so fiercely, ignoring the whispers of doubt, the subtle changes in her behavior, the unshakable feeling in my gut that something was wrong. For 12 years, we built a life together. 12 long years in which I devoted myself entirely to our family. I worked tirelessly, ensuring that Lisa and our children, Noah and Emily, had everything they could ever need. But in the end, what was it all for? The signs had always been there, appearing gradually at first. A shift in her tone, the way her eyes lingered on her phone, laughter meant for someone else. She was always texting, always stepping out to meet her friends, growing more distant with each passing day. When I asked her about it, she would scoff, roll her eyes, and dismiss my concerns with a casual, "You're imagining things, babe." Maybe she was right. Maybe I wanted her to be right. But after more than a decade together, you learn to sense when something is off. The real fractures started showing 2 years ago. Noah had just turned 9. Emily was 6. They were my entire world. And yet, every so often, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. Something about Noah's eyes. They didn't quite match mine. Emily's curls, so unlike anyone in my family. I hated myself for even entertaining the notion, so I pushed it away, until the night I found Lisa's old phone, buried in the back of a drawer she had long forgotten about. I still don't know what compelled me to turn it on. The messages were all there. Years worth. Different names, different numbers, different men. Some of the conversations were nothing more than flirtation. Others were explicit. Sickeningly so. My hands turned ice cold as I scrolled through them, my stomach twisting itself into knots. 3 men. 3. One of them, Mark, had messages dating back nearly 11 years. Everything clicked into place. The excuses, the sudden plans, the nights she claimed to be visiting her mother. It all aligned too perfectly. I spent the entire night unraveling a truth I had never wanted to know, and by morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't lash out. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of turning this against me, of making me question my own reality. No, I would handle this on my own terms. I ordered DNA tests in secret, waiting for the right moment. Lisa, oblivious, continued as if nothing had changed, kissing me each morning, sending sweet messages throughout the day, keeping up the charade of a loving wife and devoted mother. And I played along. Every lie she told, I let it pass. Every smile she gave, I mirrored. Every night she slept beside me, I held her close, knowing she had no idea that I knew everything. And when our anniversary came, I had something special planned for her. Lisa and I met in college, and for years I convinced myself our love story was something out of a fairy tale. She was magnetic, effortlessly drawing people in, her laughter capable of making the world fade away. And me? I was ordinary. Not particularly handsome, not exceptionally wealthy, but someone who loved deeply and gave everything he had. My father had shown me what love meant, not through grand gestures, but through quiet dedication. He sacrificed everything for our family, and I followed in his footsteps. I was there for Lisa in every way. When she lost her job, I worked extra hours so she wouldn't have to drop out of school. When she cried over petty fights with friends, I was the one who comforted her. My world revolved around her. 2 years into our marriage, she told me she was pregnant. Fear gripped me. I didn't know if we were ready, but the moment I held Noah's tiny hand in mine, I knew I would give everything for him. Then, 6 years later, Emily was born. My little princess, my reason for everything. Every late-night shift, every dream I put on hold, every sacrifice I made, it was all for them. I never longed for luxury or extravagance. All I ever wanted was a home filled with love, a wife who truly loved me, and children who could be proud of their father. But this was the reality I was given in return. Looking back, I realized the warning signs had been there all along. The unaccounted-for nights out, the lingering scent of an unfamiliar cologne, the strange withdrawals from our bank account. But I had always chosen to believe her, to trust her, until the night I saw it with my own eyes. It was about a year before I found the messages. I had worked a double shift and decided to come home early. The house was eerily silent, though Lisa's car was parked outside. Then I heard it, a low murmur coming from upstairs, a man's voice. Something inside me snapped. I don't even remember climbing the stairs. I don't recall how I got to our bedroom door, but I remember pushing it open. Lisa was on the bed, her robe slipping from her shoulders. A man stood beside her, his shirt undone, his face frozen in shock. For a brief moment, the world went still. Lisa's mouth opened, then shut again. I saw the exact moment she decided to lie. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, hastily pulling her robe around her. "Not what it looks like?" The man, Mark, fumbled with his buttons, mumbling incoherent excuses, inching toward the door. But my attention had already shifted. I wasn't focused on him anymore. I looked at her, this woman I had once promised my life to, and yet, at that moment, she was nothing more than a stranger. I had never been the kind of man drawn to violence, never felt the urge to act on rage, but everyone has a limit. Without hesitation, I lunged. My fist met his jaw with a sickening crack, sending him reeling backward until he collided with the nightstand. Lisa's voice sliced through the chaos, shrill and frantic, but her words meant nothing. I didn't stop. Blow after blow, I kept swinging until the sight of my bloodied knuckles jolted me back to reality. Mark, scrambling like a wounded animal, snatched up his clothes and fled without a backward glance. Lisa was sobbing now, repeating my name like a prayer, begging me to listen. I finally met her gaze, truly seeing her for the first time in years, and something inside me withered. I wanted to turn away, to leave her amidst the ruins of her betrayal and never return. But then, down the hall, I heard them. Noah, Emily, my children. I couldn't do it. I couldn't rip their world apart just because mine had crumbled. So, I made my choice. I stayed. For them. One more year of pretending, of swallowing my anger, my revulsion, my heartbreak. And in that year, I planned. Lisa thought she had won, convinced herself that I was just another fool who forgave and forgot. She had always been a master of manipulation, distorting reality until it suited her. In her mind, she hadn't been unfaithful because she was unhappy. No, that would have been too simple. She had done it because she believed she deserved more. It wasn't until much later that I uncovered the full extent of her deception, long after my plan had already been set in motion. Lisa had a type: men with influence, men with power. Mark, the one I had caught that night, was merely one name on a much longer list. She had been doing this for years. Colleagues, old flames, even strangers from bars when she felt ignored. And me? I was the safe option, the provider, the man foolish enough to believe that love was enough. Leaving me had never crossed her mind. Why would it? I was the one who paid for her comfortable life, who took care of our children while she worked late, who provided the home she always returned to after her latest betrayal. She didn't love them. That was the cruelest part. This was never about passion or connection. It was about power, the thrill of knowing she could deceive me again and again, only to come back to a husband who would never leave. She thought I was weak. She was wrong. For a year, I endured it. I smiled. I kissed her goodnight. I sat across from her at dinner and hid the loathing boiling beneath my skin. And then, on the night of our anniversary, my moment finally arrived. Lisa was stunning, draped in the deep red dress I had given her years ago, the one she wore when she wanted to feel in control. The table was set, candles flickered, wine filled our glasses. The children sat eagerly, their faces bright with excitement. I had promised them a special surprise. Lisa beamed, believing she had erased the past, convinced she had won. She had no idea what was coming. I set a small box in front of her. "Go on, Lisa," I said, my voice calm, betraying nothing. "Open it." Her fingers hovered over the lid. Maybe she sensed something, a whisper of doubt gnawing at her, but she lifted it anyway. Inside were 3 carefully wrapped envelopes, one for Noah, one for Emily, one for her. Lisa let out a light, practiced laugh, still performing, still pretending. "What's this?" she asked, her voice coated in sweetness. I gestured to the children. "Go ahead, open them." Noah, always the braver one, tore his open first. A small slip of paper slid onto the table. Lisa's smile faltered. Emily followed, revealing an identical sheet. Inside each envelope was the same thing, a DNA test. Lisa turned ghostly pale. Noah furrowed his brows, scanning the words in confusion. "Dad, what does this mean?" I leaned back, relishing the moment as Lisa's carefully curated world shattered. "It means," I said, sipping my wine, "that I'm not your father." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Emily turned to Lisa, her small voice hesitant. "Mommy?" Lisa lurched forward, a nervous laugh bubbling from her lips. "This is ridiculous," she stammered, desperation creeping in. "Some kind of sick joke?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. "It's not a joke, sweetheart." From the box, I pulled out 2 final envelopes. Each contained a photograph and a phone number. "Since I won't be your father anymore," I said, sliding them toward my children, "I thought you should at least know who your real fathers are." Lisa's face crumpled. Her hands trembled as she stared at the evidence of her own undoing. "David," she started, but I silenced her with a single raised hand. I turned to my children, my heart aching, but my voice steady. "I love you both more than anything in this world," I told them. "But I can't stay. I won't live a lie any longer." Then I met Lisa's tear-streaked gaze, my voice turning cold. "If you have questions, ask your mother." I rose, grabbed my coat, and stepped toward the door. Lisa lunged after me, her voice cracking with panic. "David, please, please don't do this. You're ruining everything." I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Because some betrayals can never be forgiven. I reached my car, yanked the door open, and dropped into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life just as she appeared, fingernails scraping against the glass, her face a ruined canvas of running mascara and frantic desperation. "You can't just leave," she screamed, voice hoarse, cracking under the weight of her hysteria. "You can't do this to me, to her, to them, to this family we built." I rolled the window down just enough for her eyes to meet mine. Cold. Unforgiving. "No, Lisa. You did this." With that, I pressed my foot to the gas, leaving her behind, stranded in the ruins of the life she destroyed. But this wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning. A year of meticulous planning had led to this moment. A year of pretending, smiling through the pain, playing my role like a devoted fool. But sitting in that car? That was just the prologue. Lisa thought the worst thing that could happen was me walking away. She had no idea what real consequences looked like. That night, I booked a hotel, silenced my phone, and sat alone in the dark with a bottle of whiskey. The weight of 12 wasted years settled over me, but it wasn't enough to stop me. Freedom wasn't justice, and justice was what I craved. Lisa had taken more than time from me. She had taken my trust, my devotion, my belief in love, all while weaving a lie that she thrived in at my expense. Walking away wasn't enough. She needed to fall. Step 2. Destruction. Before disappearing, I made sure to wipe my tracks, leaving nothing for her to follow. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful. She was reckless. And I had proof. The late-night messages, the hotel receipts, the secret rendezvous meticulously catalogued. But the crown jewel? One of her lovers was her boss, a married man with too much to lose. The next few days were calculated. A neatly compiled package landed on his wife's doorstep. Screenshots, receipts, undeniable proof of betrayal. A quiet, well-timed tip found its way to Lisa's company, exposing her overtime escapades. A single group message reached the wives of the other men she entertained. Then, I sat back and let the inevitable unfold. Step 3. Ruin. Her calls began almost immediately. 34 in the first 48 hours. Voicemails soaked in sobs, texts riddled with frantic apologies, voice notes swinging wildly between fury and desperation. I ignored every last one. Then the real fallout hit. First, she lost her job. Turns out, corporations don't appreciate employees who entangle themselves with married executives. Her boss? Fired. His marriage in shambles, his finances gutted. One by one, her social circle fractured, the women who once clung to her charm now recoiling from the disaster she had become. Lisa wasn't a victim. She was a virus, and now everyone knew it. The final reckoning came 2 weeks later. She arrived at my doorstep unannounced, stripped of the perfection she once wielded like armor. Her hair hung in tangled disarray, eyes swollen and rimmed with exhaustion, makeup smeared from hours of crying. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "You have 5 minutes." Her voice trembled. "David, please." She reached for me, fingers clutching like a drowning woman grasping at air. "I messed up. I wasn't thinking. But we can fix this." A sharp, humorless laugh escaped me. "Fix this?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Lisa, the only thing broken here is you." Tears streamed freely down her face. "I was selfish," she choked out. "But I love you. I always loved you." I studied her for a long moment before delivering the final blow. "No, Lisa, you don't love me. You just miss the man who did." Then I shut the door. And for the first time in 12 years, I didn't look back. Weeks passed in silence. No more desperate texts, no more voicemails drowning in regret, no more futile attempts to rewrite the past. And I felt nothing. The weight I had carried for so long had finally lifted. I could breathe again. But it wasn't truly over. There was still one last battle to fight. Custody. Noah and Emily. That was the hardest part. They weren't mine by blood, but I was the one who had been there, the one who wiped their tears, stayed up with them through fevers, taught them how to ride bikes, read them bedtime stories until they drifted into dreams. They were my children. I loved them. But I had to let them go. Lisa fought viciously, painting me as a deserter, a heartless man who abandoned them. She wielded them like weapons, desperate to keep control of something, anything. But she forgot one thing. I had the truth. And when my lawyer laid it all bare, her deceit, her affairs, her betrayals, the facade she clung to crumbled before the court. The verdict? Full separation, no alimony, no financial obligation for children who, legally, weren't mine. Lisa shattered in the courtroom, screaming, sobbing, breaking beneath the reality she had built. I watched in silence, unmoved. I had given her everything once. I had nothing left to give. And when I stepped out of that courthouse for the last time, I knew the scales had finally balanced. 1 year later, people love to say revenge isn't worth it, that it doesn't heal, doesn't bring peace, that the best course is to move on, to be the better person. But you know what? Forget that. For the first time ever, I knew what it meant to be truly happy. And Lisa? She lost everything. Her career was gone, her reputation was in ruins, and any financial security she once had vanished. Desperate, she tried to crawl back to the men she had once deceived. But here's the thing. None of them wanted anything to do with her. The foundation of lies she had built her life upon crumbled beneath her feet. As for me, I turned the page. A fresh start in a new city, a job that actually fulfilled me, and the excitement of dating again. But above all else, I was finally free. Then came the last message. Nearly a year later, in the dead of night, my phone screen flickered to life with a text. The number wasn't saved, but I didn't need to guess. I knew exactly who it was. Lisa. I stared at the words for a long time. Just one simple question. Do you ever think about us? I thought about the years I had wasted, the love I had poured into someone who never once deserved it. And without a second thought, I erased the message. Some people aren't even worth a response. Lisa? She was nothing more than a lesson I'd never have to learn again. This story has come to an end. Life teaches us harsh but essential lessons. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build, but only seconds to shatter. Betrayal by those we love doesn't just hurt. It forces us to rethink who we are and what we truly deserve. But revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's justice, a well-earned reckoning for those who played with others' hearts. This story is a reminder. Never ignore the obvious. Value yourself, and never be afraid to walk away from betrayal. Because true freedom doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from knowing your worth. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. When the truth becomes a weapon and lies turn into an unbreakable shield, you have only two choices: escape or shatter. You walk into the house expecting silence, a routine evening, but instead, you step into a trap. A cold stare, a voice like a judge passing sentence, words that cut like bullets. She's ready for war, but you're not the same man anymore. No more excuses, no more compromises. And when you finally decide to break free from her web, you realize this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. She won't let go. She's already making her next move. The game of destruction has begun. Can you survive it? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. The evening should have been uneventful, routine, just another end to a long day. I had expected nothing more than a quiet meal, perhaps some small talk, and then unwinding with something mindless on TV. But the moment I stepped through the door, I knew something was off. The air inside felt heavier, carrying an unspoken weight. A chill hung in the room that had nothing to do with the temperature. My wife sat at the table, arms crossed like a barricade, her jaw set in rigid determination. She had been waiting. I saw it in her posture, the intensity in her gaze tracking my every move. She wasted no time. The first thing out of her mouth was a pointed remark, laced with a bitterness I recognized all too well, something about how I wasn't contributing enough to our marriage. It was familiar, an accusation I had heard before. Normally, I would have let it pass. But this time, she wasn't content with just voicing her frustrations. She wanted a fight. Do you even care about this marriage, or are you just here because it's convenient? Her voice was sharp, each syllable designed to wound. That was it. That was the moment something shifted inside me. For years, I had walked on eggshells, carefully navigating her moods, letting her control the narrative. I had kept my thoughts to myself, swallowed my grievances just to maintain peace. But not anymore. I set my fork down deliberately, met her gaze and said, "I'm done pretending this is normal." Her expression flickered, first with surprise, then with simmering anger. "Excuse me?" she shot back, her tone dripping with disbelief, as if the very idea of my defiance was absurd. I didn't flinch. "You heard me. I'm tired of the guilt trips, the constant blame, the way you twist everything to make me the villain. I'm done." A thick silence stretched between us, suffocating in its weight. I could see the calculations running through her mind. This was new. She wasn't used to me standing firm, refusing to be maneuvered. Normally, by now, I would have given in, offered an apology just to diffuse the situation. But not this time. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice into something almost chilling. "You're going to regret this." It wasn't a plea, not an attempt at resolution. It was a warning, spoken with absolute certainty. Maybe I should have been afraid. Maybe, deep down, a part of me was. But mostly, I felt drained, exhausted from the endless cycle of manipulation, the constant tension of never knowing when I might misstep. I exhaled slowly. "Do whatever you need to do. I'm done playing this game." Her expression darkened. Without another word, she pushed back her chair and stormed out, the slam of the door rattling through the house. I remained seated, staring at the space she had just occupied. I knew this wasn't over. She didn't let go of control so easily. And now that I had broken free from her grip, I had no illusions that she would simply walk away. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go. I didn't have to wait long to find out. By morning, the shift was already in motion. She barely spoke to me, no sarcastic remarks, no passive-aggressive digs, just silence. And that, more than anything, signaled what was coming. I had seen this pattern before. It was the eerie calm before the inevitable storm. By midday, the first message arrived. It was from her mother. "I can't believe you would do this to her. She gave you everything, and this is how you repay her?" I read it twice, absorbing the implication. I hadn't told anyone about our argument, but clearly she had wasted no time ensuring her version of events was the first to reach the outside world. Then came another message, her sister this time. "You need to fix this. She's devastated. Whatever you did, just apologize before it's too late." Too late for what? That part remained vague, but the strategy was obvious. She was constructing the narrative, ensuring she played the victim before I even had a chance to speak. I had no doubt her version strayed far from the truth. That evening, as I walked through the door, she was on the phone. The moment she noticed me, her voice lifted in volume, taking on a tremble I had never heard before. "I just don't know how much more of this I can take," she sobbed, her back turned to me. Then, lowering her voice just enough for me to hear, she murmured, "I just feel so unsafe." That single word hit like a slap. It wasn't random. It was a carefully placed weapon designed to dismantle me in an instant. I said nothing. I refused to rise to the bait. Instead, I walked past her, unwilling to participate in the performance. But she was an expert at this, and by the time I checked my phone again, I had missed calls from nearly every member of her family. And it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the walls began closing in. Conversations with her relatives, once casual and warm, grew cold, clipped. Some stopped acknowledging me entirely. At work, I struggled to focus as my phone continued to vibrate, each message filled with accusations, assumptions, demands for me to make amends for a crime I hadn't committed. I reached out to one person I thought might be reasonable, her cousin, someone I had always gotten along with. But before I could explain, he cut me off. "Look," he said, voice firm, "I don't know all the details. But she's family, and if she says you hurt her, I have to believe her." Hurt her? I expected her to twist the truth, but I never imagined just how far she would take it. She wasn't content with simply making me out to be the villain. Her goal was complete isolation, and she was succeeding. The atmosphere at home had become suffocating, the silence pressing in on me like an unbearable weight. She wouldn't meet my eyes, yet I could always feel her watching, waiting. She wanted me to break, to beg for forgiveness. But I refused to give her that satisfaction. I held on to the hope that, eventually, the truth would come to light. The real question was how much damage she would inflict before that happened. By the time I realized just how much of an advantage she had, it was already too late. She had moved first, spreading her version of events before I had a chance to defend myself, ensuring that everyone saw her as the victim. People looked at me differently now. Some avoided me entirely, while others stared with quiet pity, as if my fate had already been decided. It was infuriating, but I knew arguing my case would be pointless. Most of them had already chosen their side. Then, something unexpected happened. A message appeared on my phone. It was from her uncle. 3 words. "Hey, can we talk?" I was caught off guard. We had never been particularly close, but he had always seemed like a fair man, not someone who involved himself in trivial disputes. Curious, I agreed to meet him. When I arrived at the cafe, he was already there, his expression unreadable. There was no small talk. He got straight to the point. "I need to hear your side. What really happened?" I wasn't sure if explaining things would change anything, but I told him everything. I laid out how she had manipulated situations for years, how I had finally had enough and refused to play along, and how she had retaliated by turning everyone against me. He listened carefully, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, he let out a slow breath. I had a feeling something wasn't right, he admitted. He told me that people were already beginning to notice inconsistencies in her story. At first, she had claimed complete innocence, but when others started asking questions, her narrative kept shifting. One day, she accused me of yelling and breaking things. The next, she claimed I had withdrawn emotionally for months. Later, she escalated her claims, alleging I had threatened her. That's when people really started questioning her. Her story isn't holding up, he said, and you're not the first person she's done this to. That revelation hit me hard. He then shared something I had never known. Before I even met her, she had orchestrated a nearly identical situation with an ex-boyfriend. She had provoked him, pushed him until he finally stood his ground, then twisted the story to make herself the victim. Back then, no one had doubted her. But this time, people were starting to see the cracks. Not long after, those cracks widened. One of her cousins, one of the first people to cut me off, reached out hesitantly. "Look, man," he said, "I think I got this wrong." Little by little, the foundation of lies she had built began to crumble. Her family wasn't oblivious. They started comparing notes, questioning her version of events, and realizing that the details didn't align. I no longer needed to defend myself. The truth was unraveling on its own. It didn't happen overnight, but I could feel the tide shifting. The same people who had turned against me were now reconsidering everything they had believed. She had spent years perfecting the art of manipulation, but this time she had gone too far. The contradictions in her story weren't just subtle, they were glaring, and there was no way for her to cover them up. The first major crack in her carefully crafted image came when her mother, one of her most vocal supporters, called me unexpectedly. "We need to talk." I braced myself for another attack, another lecture on how I should have handled things differently. But what I heard instead shocked me. "I think I made a mistake." She sounded exhausted, defeated. She admitted that she had tried to make sense of everything her daughter had told her, but the details kept shifting. One day I had supposedly abandoned her emotionally. The next, I was controlling. Then I had allegedly lashed out in unpredictable ways. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she confessed. I didn't say a word. I let her sit with her doubts because, for once, it wasn't my responsibility to clean up the mess. And she wasn't the only one starting to see the truth. Over the next few days, more messages trickled in, first from people who had distanced themselves, then from those who had outright ignored me. Her aunt reached out, apologizing for believing my wife's version without ever hearing mine. Her cousin, one of her most vocal supporters, admitted he had felt pressured into taking her side. The most unexpected moment came when her father, a man who had barely acknowledged me throughout our marriage, appeared at my door looking grim. "She's done this before, hasn't she?" I simply nodded. He exhaled heavily, shaking his head. I should have known. It wasn't news to him. He had seen her pull the same manipulative tactics as a teenager, pitting people against one another, playing the victim whenever she was confronted with the truth. He had hoped she had grown out of it. Clearly, she hadn't. And with every conversation, every reluctant apology I received, the power she once held over the narrative slipped further from her grasp. She had relied on blind loyalty, on people never questioning her. But now, the very ones she had counted on were the ones dismantling her lies. I knew it was only a matter of time before she realized just how much control she had lost. And when that moment came, I had no doubt she would fight to take it back, by any means necessary. This time, it wasn't just about playing her usual psychological games. This time, she was truly desperate. It began subtly, small, almost imperceptible shifts in behavior, as if the past few weeks of manipulating my family and dismantling my reputation had been nothing more than an unfortunate misunderstanding. One evening, as if nothing had transpired, She nonchalantly took a seat beside me in the living room, her demeanor unsettlingly normal. "We need to talk," she murmured, her voice softer than it had been in ages. I didn't answer. I knew better than to believe this was remorse. This was just another move, an attempt to reset the board in her favor. "I know things got out of hand," she admitted. "Maybe I took it too far." Too far? That was an understatement. But I knew she wasn't here to take responsibility. "I was hurting," she went on, "and you weren't listening. I just needed people to understand what I was going through." I refused to be drawn in. I had seen this pattern too many times before. She would lash out, cause chaos, then downplay the destruction once it no longer served her purpose. She had never genuinely apologized before, and she wasn't about to start now. Instead, she shifted gears. "If you truly cared about this marriage, you wouldn't have let it come to this." There it was, the familiar pivot. The attempt to make me shoulder the blame for the collapse of something she had systematically destroyed. I studied her closely, and for the first time, I truly saw her, a woman incapable of accepting that her usual methods of control were failing. "We're beyond that now," I said simply. Her expression changed instantly. The manufactured vulnerability vanished, replaced with cold anger. "So that's it?" she snapped. "You're just going to throw everything away?" Everything. A strange word for something built on manipulation and deceit. "No," I replied. "You did that." For once, she had no comeback. She stared at me, lips pressed tight, before shaking her head and storming out. I assumed that would be the end of it, that she would finally accept her defeat. But I underestimated her need to stay in control. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages from mutual friends. She had already changed tactics. With her family no longer at her disposal, she sought to control the narrative elsewhere. "I don't know what to do," she wrote to them. "He's completely shut me out, and I don't even understand why." This time, she wasn't painting me as abusive or cruel. Instead, she positioned herself as the abandoned victim, left alone, bewildered, and heartbroken. But it didn't work. Too many people had seen the truth for themselves. Too many had witnessed her deceit firsthand. With every failed attempt to regain sympathy, her grip over the situation slipped further. I braced myself for one final act of desperation, some grand, last-ditch effort to pull me back into her web. But instead, she did something far more predictable. She pretended not to care. For days, she barely spoke. No accusations, no schemes. She carried herself like someone who had made peace with the outcome. But I knew better. This wasn't acceptance. It was another strategy. She was waiting for me to doubt myself, to feel guilty enough to crawl back. I didn't. Then, one evening, she entered the room, her expression unreadable. "I think we should separate," she announced, as if the decision had come from deep reflection rather than weeks of failed manipulation. I met her gaze. "I agree." For a split second, surprise flickered across her face, a tightening of the jaw, a twitch of the fingers. She had expected resistance. This wasn't about moving on. It was about controlling the story, making it seem like her choice. "I think it's for the best," she added carefully, watching for my reaction. "I need time to heal from all of this." I almost laughed. Heal? From what? The wreckage she had created? The web of lies she had spun? But I didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. A week later, she was gone. And with her departure, the house felt different, lighter. The silence that had once suffocated me now felt like freedom. Then, the apologies started rolling in. One by one, her family reached out. Some called, others sent lengthy messages, each attempting to justify why they had believed her so easily. A few admitted they had known she was lying, but found it simpler to go along than confront her. The longest message came from her mother, the first to condemn me without hesitation. "I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I should have listened. I see it now." I ignored most of the messages, not out of resentment, but because I no longer needed their validation. I had spent too long trying to prove myself to people who had never given me the benefit of the doubt. The last message came from her father. Short. Director. She'll do this again. Be glad you got out. That was the only apology that ever felt genuine. Unlike all the others, he hadn't said it to absolve himself. He was warning me. And he was right. A month later, mutual friends started talking. The story had already begun to shift. In her version, I had walked away. I was distant, indifferent, unwilling to fight for us. It didn't matter. She could twist the truth however she liked. The outcome had already been decided. I was finished. I was free. This story has come to an end. Manipulation can be invisible, but its consequences are devastating. This story reminds us, when someone tries to control you through lies, pressure, and manipulation, your strength lies in truth and boundaries. Never let the fear of loneliness keep you trapped in a toxic relationship. Those who truly value you will eventually see the truth, and those who blindly believe lies were never really on your side. The most important thing is to never lose yourself, even when the world seems against you. True freedom begins when you stop fearing the opinions of others. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.